I think a new area where we see religion exerting an influence is in ethics. Because think about how much ethics is taking up, how much time it's taking up in the debate. You talk about corporate ethics, you talk about bioethics. Ethics is on the agenda all the time. And for some reason, I can't fathom why, you always go and ask, clergy of different kind about ethics. They're assumed to have some kind of moral superiority. You go ask, for example, the Catholic Church what they think about something. And as for morality, I cannot fathom why you would ask the Catholic Church what is right and what is wrong. Anyhow. In this country, we see it again and again and again. We have, in the media, whenever there is a discussion of good, bad, right, wrong ethics, you have some very, very media-savvy priests from our Lutheran Church. And they're almost not regarded as, when you ask people, they won't say, this is a representative of Christianity. No, this is just this very nice priest that has all these interesting opinions about ethics and whatever. But no, it is religion exerting an influence over what we think, but in a stealth way, in a sort of, it's not declared. They don't come out and say, I'm a Christian, and because this is what it says in my book, this is what you have to believe. No, it's packaged much more sort of, I'm just this wise person who happens to be a member of the Danish church, whatever. And I think one area that's going to be very important in the future is bioethics. Bioethics, of course, is a field that was invented by moral philosophers who were, basically out of a job 20 years ago. And then suddenly they latched onto biology and medicine because they could see, oh, here's going to be problems that people will discuss. So let's create this new area called bioethics. And bioethics is important because the biosciences, the life sciences are really affecting our society. They are creating technologies that are as important as, IT and the computer and whatever. And we are going to see big fights about what kind of technologies can we use, how can we use them. Look at the stem cell debate, for example. It's interesting to see how, of course, in the US, the stem cell debate was completely run by right-wing Christians, and they came out and said it straight out. It's because that life is sacred from the moment of conception. You cannot use embryonic stem cells to create cells or whatever that you can cure other people with. Okay, that was a statement you could understand. Okay, this comes out of the Bible. In this country, for example, there was also a debate about stem cells. And here, you don't see that sort of argument where you say you don't point to the Bible in this country. That would be kind of embarrassing. But still, you have the same weird belief. You say that, well, there is some kind of natural order. It's like religion has morphed into this sort of belief that, oh, there is a natural order that can be disturbed. And of course, you still hear people who will say they're not Christians or anything like that, but they will still say that life is kind of sacred, isn't it? And it's sacred from the moment of conception. It's funny, because when you go back and look at where did this come from with the life that's sacred from conception, it's not in the Bible anywhere. It's actually a pope in the 1800s who just decreed out of nowhere that life is sacred from the moment of conception, so don't try anything like abortion. And that's where it comes from, but most Christians don't even know that. And I think it's interesting that there's this great big debate in bioethics, of course, about what life is and when it begins. And as you saw before, the little baby that will be killed by embryonic stem cell researchers. The thing is that this is what they will tell you, that this is sacred life, a few cells. And this whole debate about what life is and when it begins, it's interesting that in a technological society like ours, that debate should be run by people who have nothing to say about what life actually is, who are not researchers, who are not biologists. Why should it be people, with some kind of weird religious belief that should affect the way that we use medical technology? But they are affecting it. If you look at, for example, the Ethical Council in Denmark, some of the very well-known voices, the people who speak out for that ethical council, are typically, there's a bishop there. I mean, what does she know about biology? Nothing, as far as I know. There is a Pentecostal guy who has beliefs that are way out there. Still, he's put in an ethical council. And it's still, and if you look at, any debate that goes on in the media about bioethics, you will see that they will trot these religious people out and ask them about life. You ask a biologist about life. He studies it or she studies it. A Christian or a Buddhist has nothing to say about the definition of life, as far as I know. The last thing, or the last time we saw this very clearly was a month ago when Craig Venter came out with his synthetic cell. It was called synthetic life. It was not synthetic life, but it was a cell that had, a synthetic genome that had been put into it, and it was, it became alive, of course. And if you go through the New York Times, the Financial Times, the Danish papers, French papers, whatever, all the arguments against this always come down to this, but it's humans playing God. Isn't that awful in itself? Of course it's not awful. It's what we've been doing all along. We have created our own environment. We create technology because we want to be in charge of our lives. But this is actually still an argument that is taken for, as a valid argument. Humans are playing God, it's awful. And that's how these weird old beliefs will still exert a great influence in our society. I think that because this cognitive parasite is, very, very adaptive and very, very smart, that it will be with us forever, I'm afraid. And I'd like to just end by reading a little paragraph from a book called Why God Won't Go Away by the psychiatrist Eugene Agili and Andrew Newberg, who's a biologist. And what they say is, the main reason God won't go away is because our brains won't allow God to leave. Our brains are set up in such a way that God and religion become among the most powerful tools for helping the brain do its thing: self-maintenance, self-transcendence. Unless there's a fundamental change in how our brain works, God will be around for a very long time. So what I think we should do is just realize that we are dealing with a chronic infection. It's like HIV. But of course you can live with a chronic infection, you just need to treat it regularly. And treatment, of course, is speaking up, being vigilant, because you know that when you allow the mixing of gods and politics, God and societal life, that is when society becomes really, really ill. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I hope there are some questions and comments. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.